businesses, the closure, thank God, the recent openings of roads, but the closure of roads as well. Now, I understand that the need for all this to occur, as the process allows the governor to bypass many of Guam's laws so that action can be expedited. And that's important. The governor must have that authority to move forward quickly. So it's not preventing that from happening. But in case she won't need the legislation authorization to spend monies on critical necessities, nor would she need certain mandates blocking her from doing her job, which is to protect the island residents and manage this crisis. I get it. It's fine. I support that. My concern is, however, transparency, which apparently is one of the things missing in Chapter 19. So as your senator, I don't want to prevent the governor from doing what is logically needed to address this pandemic. No, I don't want to do that. But I just want to make sure that the funds are spent or when properties are seized, that I know about it and that you know about it. So we can all be transparent with this. But yes, under Chapter 19, property can be seized by the governor, by the government. This is made known, and we've heard recordings of that previously as well. Even medical supplies, we read about that, right? Supplies of PPEs can be seized. So once again, I get it. If it's needed, the objective of managing this crisis, then it's what it is. That's fine. But let's know about it. This is why I introduced Bill 338. So we know what's going on. It's transparency. Can you imagine if your business or property or even your supplies were all seized? Don't you think the legislature should know about it, including how much was compensated in return? We live in democracy, and whether we're in the crisis or we're not. And part of that process is understanding how taxpayers' dollars are spent, including the federal funds, how they are expended. These are some of the measures we've introduced recently with the intent not of only promoting more transparency within your government, but also seeking a way to help those displaced during a crisis. But I need your help. If one thing has been proven during this pandemic, it's that your voices do matter. 2 weeks ago, you made your point very clear on making sure policies associated with curfews and more government control on your movement was going to be accepted. The measure failed, and it failed miserably. For weeks, you've been expressing your disappointment with the roadblocks, and that policy was also lifted. So now I can truly say your government is listening, and if you believe that more transparency is needed, then talk about it. If you believe you should use some of the federal funds to help those who have lost their jobs, then continue to express it. If you want answers to your questions, then continue to ask, because sooner or later, someone will listen. I know I'm listening, and I've been provided some of the questions from the media, but unfortunately, they're designed for the invitees who apparently are not here. And so we'll continue to seek out some of those answers for those questions as well. Why don't we just, let's go ahead and try to seek it out right now. Let's give a call.
Oh yeah, live calls.
We're gonna try Department of Labor one more time.
Yeah.
You go, buddy.
It's ringing. We'll give it a couple more times.
Good luck. They have caller ID.
That they do.
And last ring. All right. So no answer at Department of Labor per those numbers provided by the JIG, Joint Information Center.
Amy Jackson says,
Let's give
now you
another
know
try
how
to
we
Department
feel with
of
phone calls, Troy.
Revenue and Tax for that number they provided us.
Sandra Rages says, yes, call him.
Hello. Hi, Department of Revenue and Taxation? Hi, I'm... Hi, hello? Okay. Okay, obviously they're not able to answer the phone right now. It seems like something's dealing with the Dropbox. We're going to try another number that was provided as well. Okay, so this is 635-1841, one of the other numbers provided by the JIG. Okay, we're going to pass on that as well. I'm sure they have limited staff and their projects are keeping them quite busy, but that still, that's no, we need answers, and that's what we're trying to get for you. We got another number here we're trying for Department of Rev and Tax too. 635-1815.
That's the director's number.
Oh, thank you, Troy, for that number.
No problem. That's their screen, not mine. Yeah.
All right, we're going to cancel that call as well. Okay, so unsuccessful attempts a few times, Department of Labor and Department of Revenue and Taxation. Not to say that they're not busy, but you know, when we try to call, we just gotta hopefully get answers. And that was the objective, is to try to get a hold of our directors of these departments to brief us and give us an update. So
I don't know why Kevin Kerrigan is
basically,
sharing his screen.
That's where we're at. And we wanted to just let you know and express our difficulties and disappointment with the department. So I'm going to conclude our first forum today, and just by saying thank you. And I know we've had some technical difficulties, but we're learning this. And we'd like to continue doing more of these. As well as we mentioned, we're going to be reaching out to our congressman, which will be happy to assist us, but also to OPA, BJ Cruz, to assist us with questions as well for the transparency part. So thank you. I did notice several comments during the briefing, and I appreciate your continued support. But please continue to voice your concerns, continue to voice what you want to know, because it does make a difference, and I've seen it happen. So thank you very much. God bless you, and may we all have a healthy day. Thank you very much.
So I'm sorry that we weren't able to provide the, oh, here we are. Senator, are you taking questions?
Hi, Troy. Hey there.
Hi, buenas.
Hi. Buenas. Half a day.
Half a day.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, thank you so much. And for our viewing audience out here in Candid Land, we were able to catch some of your conversation with Jenna Blas, the spokeswoman for civil defense. And we weren't able to catch more than half of it because there was a power spike. But anyway, to recap for our audience, Jenna was not able to provide you any of the answers that you were looking for, and you were asking questions regarding the government's finances and also opportunities that there may be for local cash relief. Would that be a correct generalization or correct summary?
Yeah, very, very correct. Yes, we wanted the updates on the CARES Act regarding the stimulus and also regarding the unemployment PUA as well. And so we were given the direction to call 311, and we were able to speak with Jenna Blas, and she was very helpful. They answered the phone quickly. That was good. But we expected that those answers she wouldn't be able to answer for us. But she did direct us then to call the departments, and she provided us with those numbers to call, which we attempted to do a couple of times and weren't able to get connected as well. So again, I was hoping this forum would be about the ability to speak with the directors and get the most up-to-date information from them to share with the listening audience and all your groups there that are watching. So that was an opportunity, but we won't give up. We'll keep on trying to do that.
Well, if you want a job at Candid News, now you know how we feel when we call the government of Guam to ask for some answers. But Senator, I do have some questions, and we did submit these, and I'm guessing that some of the questions we submitted were maybe the foundation of some of the questions you have for Jenna Blas. But are you willing to circulate a call to session vote sheet for your colleagues to debate the transparency measures that you've introduced, your rollback of the BPT bill, and also to amend the budget?
Sure. Of course, I'll be happy to do that. You know, I've done it by standing in front of the Congress building for 3 days and holding up a sign saying, you know, unemployment is, we're not being premature by wanting to call into a special session to help those that are unemployed today. And likewise, I'll do the same thing again if that's what it's going to take. But it's going to be a cooperative measure with my colleagues in order to get my bills heard on the floor. And I definitely would want to get their support and get these bills heard. Now, it's not a perfect bill, and amendments could be made, and I'm
Sure.
more than open to that. But really, like the bill I was discussing, the 345, the pandemic fund. You know, can you imagine $117 million from the federal government going into the general fund? Like it shouldn't be. It should be in its own special fund so that we can track, the legislature can track, ADALUP can track, DOA can track, OPA can track, DRT can track, without looking everywhere else in the general fund. It just kind of, you know, water and oil, it just kind of dilutes somewhere. So that's one of the bills. And then going back to the business privilege tax as well, sure that as well. But also getting money into the hands of the people as soon as possible. We're taking from the 117 million. That's a lot of money, and we were estimating possibly 20,000 people unemployed, right? And give them $800 each, right? At one time. Why it would help. It's not the stimulus package, but it would help. Go ahead and take that. At least 800, that comes out to $20-some million out of 117. It's small enough where you can manage, right? But the people need action now. And we get the phone calls all the time. I get the emails all the time, and I can hear on the radio programs and all the radio programs and social media programs as well. The disappointment in the public. What is the legislature doing? The disappointment in the public. When is my money coming? You know, we don't print the money here. That's for sure. But we do have the money now. So where's the plan of action? We understand that we're waiting on more guidelines again from the federal government, and there's some delays there. But right now in our coffers, there's $117 million there. So it's simple. Pay out the people, give them money. Hopefully this bill moves forward, or the governor can do it herself.
There are two bills that the governor vetoed that provide plans of actions. One is 333, which sets certain guidelines and requires transparency and accountability. And the other one is 326, which laid out a hazard pay scheme, but also reinforced an existing entitlement that would get, as the governor estimates, some $36 million into the hands of GovGuam workers who are working during this emergency, are entitled to emergency rate pay at a rate of double their standard rate of pay. Are you considering a vote to override the governor's veto on those two bills?
I believe the author of the bill, I forget which one it was, at this time is not looking to do that. I believe that was Senator Therese. It's disappointing when this bill had unanimous vote and it went forward, and it's disappointing that it was vetoed. But that's the governor's choice, and if that moves forward, I'm not sure on either of the bills. It's disappointing. But I really want to get back to let's spend the money for the people today as soon as possible. But Troy, if you don't mind, there is a couple more calls. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Senator Moylan, this is Kevin OPC. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear, Kevin. Hi there.
Hi. Listen, one thing I was told by the Speaker's office yesterday that the administration has been in touch with at least the Speaker's office about that 117 million or 129 million, depending upon who you talk to. What have you been told, or what have other lawmakers been told about what the administration plans to do with that money?
Well, I can't say what they've been told, but I can tell you what I've been told. With a bunch of my letters, multiple letters, I've been told nothing. I'm fortunate that you folks and the media are doing a great job because the one or two questions that you're able to ask gives the public information. And I do listen to the daily releases by the governor, and I appreciate that. And her department heads, I appreciate those information being released. That's where I get my information, and that's from the media. And it's not from any answers I get directly. And sometimes I'm really proud of my senators that are able, or who have written letters to the governor and get a same-day response or the following day response. So congratulations for that. But myself, go right ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, we were told by the Speaker's office that the governor's office has informed the Speaker that they're putting together a spending plan for that money, a budget, if you will, and they're going to submit it to the legislature this week. You haven't heard that? I see some other senators are on this chat as well. I'm wondering if any of them have heard about this plan yet. You aware?
I have not heard their spending plans for that money, no. And probably my colleagues, my fellow colleagues, if they've heard, they'll probably let me know too, and we would happily share that information with each other.
What do you think they should do with that money? 117, 129, that's a lot.
It is a lot. That is definitely true, right? And to be able to spend that money, that, you know, how much are you going to be buying, right? How much expenses do you have? But what you should do, that's why with this introduction of the bill just today, the immediate money into the public's hands, $800. That's all I'm basically asking. I know it's not, you know, it's not exactly what the people need, but it's $800 that could help them purchase food, could help while they use their other monies to pay other necessities like gas or their utility bills or other purchases they have to purchase for their children. But if you can give $800 to 20,000 people, which we're estimating are unemployed, that's budgeting around $20 million out of that $117 million. That would really help the people today. You know, we can work it out with the departments. They can work it out with DRT and DOA on how this is all paid out. But but it's possible. We need to take action. I appreciate the governor wanting to have the plans and moving it forward, right? That's great. So include paying the money out to the people of Guam as soon as possible to buy food for their tables. And if that's one of the plans included, well, God bless her.
Thank you, Senator.
You're welcome. Okay, and I'm just trying to. Oh, we're having an incoming call from, it seems like Congressman Mike St. Nicholas. So let's see if we can take that call, please. Just waiting for it to come on in. Congressman St. Nicholas, are you on?
Hey, Jim, how are you doing?
Very good, Congressman. Well, thank you so much for your late in day over there in DC, and I hope you're doing well. I appreciate the call in. I understand the timing wasn't right, but thank you for making that. So right now we're on Facebook Live here, and we have several viewers and people online with us, and I just want to give you the opportunity to share with us as you move forward with the different phases of this COVID-19 money and expenses, and I'm so glad that Congress passed the additional monies for the PPP programs. But if you can kindly share what else is coming down in the pipelines for us, or anything else you can share, I would greatly appreciate it. So please, Congressman Mike St. Nicholas, go right ahead, please.
Thank you, Jim. There's a number of discussions ongoing about a second round of the CARES package. They're calling it CARES 2. Some are calling it COVID 4, depending on where you want to originate these relief packages in terms of the legislation that we pulled out. It's too premature right now to share the details of what's being written into this second package. But what I did want to share with you and with some of your colleagues is how we really need the legislature's help. Right now, a lot of money is being spent, and it's presumptuous, and it's not transparent that the money currently being spent is federal money, and the reality is that actually none of it is. For example, the expenses incurred for the quarantine hotels, those expenses were incurred of local funds. And the local government is attempting to reimburse those local expenses by basically converting them into federal expenses that are supposed to comply with the federal requirements on the COVID-19 funding. Another local expense is the payment of tax, the stimulus money for filers in 2018 under $10,000. That also is technically a local expense. That is not a federal expense at this time.
Wow.
And in both of those instances, the reason why it's important for the legislature to have very strong oversight over how those monies are being expended is because when we take and we put them to the federal government, the cleanliness of those expenses are going to have an impact on our ability to for example, payment of 18 tax filers was not in conformance with the federal law in the language in the CARES Act. And so what's happening now is IRS is being put into a difficult position where the local government is wanting federal reimbursement for local expenses that did not conform with the clear language in the federal law.
Wow.
And IRS is trying to be helpful, trying to find workarounds, but just creating those kind of quagmires is making things very difficult for us out here federally, because it not only causes a lot of delays, but it's also going to really raise red flags in every single local program that we're trying to get approved with the federal government, whether it's the stimulus money or the unemployment program. And those red flags are going to cause our program transmittals to be reviewed very, very critically because of the fact that these local expenditures that are now being put for federal reimbursement were already outside of the lines. And so I need the Guam legislature to hold oversight hearings over the agencies and the individuals that have been incurring these expenses. And while the governor may make the case that the legislature does not have oversight over federal money, the reality is that none of those expenses are actually federal dollars. Those have all been local dollars.
Wow.
And to further raise concern is that the governor spending the $11 million for the 2018 filers, she's claiming that she's using cash management authority to do that. But if there's no federal program in place currently to pay that stimulus money, then what cash management authority is she using? And there was no local appropriation to spend that money.
Exactly.
And so there's no local appropriation to spend that money, and there's no existing federal program in place to make it a cash management action, then what authority is the governor using to spend $11 million of local funds? And that needs to be looked into, because the nature of that expenditure being non-conforming with the clear language of the federal law now puts that money in question as to whether or not it will be reimbursed. And even if it is reimbursed, how much time did we lose having to make our program work around that action? And these are all very, very serious things that need to be taken into consideration. Additionally, even when federal dollars are expended, the governor right now has definitely $117 million in the bank for a very general form of COVID relief, and you've kind of touched on that, and Senator Lee's touched on that those funds can be strategically rolled out to provide relief to our community legislatively. Those federal dollars, the governor may assert that the legislature does not have oversight over that, but the reality is, if one single locally funded GovGuam employee, or one single locally funded GovGuam facility, or one single locally funded piece of GovGuam equipment is used to manage those federal monies, then the local government does have oversight authority on how those local resources are being used to manage federal money. So the legislature absolutely has oversight over how these federal dollars are being moved throughout our system. And I really, really need the legislature to exercise that oversight authority. It needs to be put on the record who's making these decisions. It needs to be put on the record whether or not it's following our procurement laws. It needs to be put on the record whether or not it's following the federal requirements in order for it to be properly reimbursed. Because the more we continue to do these things and have to put it back to the federal government for them to figure out, the harder it's going to be for us to be able to continue accessing federal resources fluidly. And right now, our people are waiting, and the mistakes that are being made in the beginning are causing things to take a lot longer than everybody would like. So that's definitely an area that I like the legislature's help in, is the oversight of the agencies. And then the second thing, and this is very, very important, as the unemployment program gets rolled out, our local people who've lost their jobs are going to need their businesses to register the unemployment circumstance with the Department of Labor, and they're going to need our local businesses to provide them with a certification that they were no longer employed, or that they lost hours as a result of the pandemic. I need the legislature to introduce local law to mandate that businesses provide that. You need to mandate that as a condition of being licensed to do business on Guam, you must register your unemployment circumstances with the Department of Labor, and you must provide certifications to any impacted employees. If we don't have that as local law, I'm getting a lot of constituents reaching out to me saying that their business is not going to register. I'm getting some reaching out to me saying the business does not want to certify. I don't know if they're just trying to avoid, having that on the record or what. I don't know. I don't quite know why the businesses would be uncooperative, but we need local law to mandate the businesses to do that. Otherwise, many of our people may not be able to avail of any unemployment benefits simply because the businesses aren't providing them with the documentation they need in order to be able to apply. So those are the two things I think are really important that the legislature can tackle immediately. I have been following your suggestion and Senator Lee's suggestion about the use of the 117 million, and I concur with your interpretation that that money is very broadly available to provide relief to our people. Now, of course, it would need to be organized relief. It would need to fit in with the procurement and the emergency response parameters of the federal government, but it is very broad. I know that other jurisdictions throughout the country have been deploying those resources to basically retrofit their communities to immediately get relief out to people in the form of food deliveries and what have you. So those are possible. I'm very concerned that those resources have been available and continue to sit idle, and I applaud you and Senator Lee for at least making an effort to shed light on the availability of those resources to bring relief. On my end out here, there's only so much I can do. I get people reaching out to me asking me to basically go in and do what the administration's job is supposed to be. I cannot do that. I also have limitations on what I can legislate, and I definitely do not have a lot of oversight authority with respect to government agencies. So I think that as fellow policymakers, me with my federal hat on and you folks with your local hat on, we need to do our part to make sure that the executive management of these monies, whether they're local or federal, are fully compliant and being put to their highest and best use for our people. Thank you, Jim. I know I took up a lot of your time.
No, Congressman, I appreciate it, and I especially your time at this late in the evening for you. But those are all great recommendations and important concerns that we must consider. I definitely would like to talk to you more with that and move forward on those two ideas. But I can see where the oversight would be important to have in order to track this money, and the concern that you expressed where I believe it's over 4 million that we have spent for these hotels, and on the stimulus, the additional 11 million too, and that's not going to fall within the guidelines of the federal money to be released, then we'll probably have a situation. But hopefully we can work through it. But it goes back again to what you're expressing and what the people are expressing there, Congressman, is that's the transparency and the more information that we need. So I'm very thankful that you were able to bring that to light and express it so well for us to better grasp. But thank you, Congressman, for your time and efforts there. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you to your legislative colleagues as well who made time to be on the call with you today.
All right, thank you. Troy, I think you have another question as well.
Yes, Senator, off of what the Congressman was saying, are you going to be calling on your colleagues? I know you're a minority member, so you don't have oversight authority in any of the committees, but are you going to be chatting it up with any of your colleagues who would have oversight authority, or maybe even a general committee of the whole oversight of the Guam legislature? And further to that, will you move to cut the government of Guam budget to align with an obviously more sober revenue collection schedule for the second half of this fiscal year? Will you use these budget cuts as a tool to force the governor to do what Congressman St. Nicholas told her to do in the beginning, and that's to sort out fund sources of expenditures so the federal funds can be used to cover more expenses that are qualified under the CARES Act and under other federal sources?
Absolutely. You know, minority or not, it's the duty of the senators. The budget is a duty that we must do. And I will voice my opinion on that. And more importantly, I think how that gets moved forward is through the social media and listening to the price, because it does make a difference. But if the money's not there, we can't function anymore the way we were functioning. I think our last budget was $960 million, and the next budget will be $1.06 billion. That's not going to happen anymore. When it's going to happen, I don't know. But now we don't want to be in the red really, but it looks obvious that that's going to happen. So we had to take some movement. We've got to do what's the right thing to do. So yes, I'll move that forward.
Also, Senator.
We,
oh, go ahead.
yes.
Sorry. Go ahead.
We're going to make a request today, and for the oversight chair, and request the oversight on these spendings for the federal money as well.
Okay.
So
good. Thank you. We'll report that as news. An April 7 rating report from Standard & Poor's on Guam's general obligations, hotel occupancy taxes, and business privilege taxes states the public health emergency has a long-term, quote, material effect, unquote, on the economy as a warning to our creditors. It further continues criticism of GovGuam's lack of a debt service reserve fund or an annual savings of cash to pay debt service in the event of a catastrophe that drains revenue to the point where we're no longer able to make those debt service payments. The spiraling of our credit rating, especially our general obligations, has a direct effect on credit ratings of our revenue bonds, which will affect the prices of power and water directly, among other considerations. Are you considering legislation that will create this debt service reserve fund that can possibly be invested in the retirement fund, as an example, on an annual basis? You know, so it's sort of killing two birds with one stone, where you have this amount of cash that's able to be liquidated. But in the meantime, if liquidation is not necessary, in the meantime, it's invested into the retirement fund so that its cash portfolio can be better for investment.
We got to pay our debtors, and this is important to do. We have to relook at our whole picture once. But yes, I'll be more than happy to introduce and really look at our retirement fund too. We can't make that fail. These are our retirees. So our rating is going to be like this probably for a while. Fortunately, the military buildup may continue while our tourism comes back. But the bond rating, that's how it's going to be. It's disappointing until we get our tourists back in and building up our.
Well, I think, Senator, there's a concern right now. We're at the very first notch of junk bonds. And according to the ratings agencies, our revenue bonds can never be more than one notch above our general obligations credit rating. So, and currently there's a negative outlook for the next bond rating. So if we don't do something to assure our creditors, according to Standard & Poor's, that we are protecting their interests, we may get another notch downward, which would drag our revenue bonds into junk bond status, and that would increase the interest on revenue bonds substantially and drive up our power and water rates right away. So, sorry, my dogs are going crazy because the last thing I wanted to ask, Senator, what are your concerns with the way, her name is Yumiko, she's a very loud dog, and she's, sorry. What are your concerns with the way the governor is handling the emergency response? And what are you willing to do in the way of legislation to fix how the governor is handling these problems?
There's a couple of bills I was discussing. One is to separate the money, of course, that is incoming, this 117 million should not be with the general fund. It should be in a special fund just for that purpose. And the other one is, let me see here. But basically the money has to be separate. Oh, and then in chapter 19, we had to include legislation in there for transparency. So what the congressman was bringing up as well, the transparency is not legislated, and it's tough when we had to fight with Adelup to get the answers that we want. It should be already in law, and Adelup through their transparency just basically releases that information per reporting period and reporting guidelines. So that's the other one. So we can work together, we can get the monies to the people, and we can be transparent too. There's nothing to hide or and when we don't hear about it, when we don't get these reports, then we get concerned, we get confused. That's what we do not want to have. So these are a couple of legislations I'm hoping to help the governor move forward and bring transparency to our island. Okay, but thank you, Troy. I hope that answered your question. And I'm getting signals that we had to end our first forum. We're basically out of time. So I want to thank all the listeners and thank you for your questions. I'd like to continue these types of forums, and hopefully we can get additional invitees to come, and we'll be able to present to provide more information for us. So thank you once again. May we all keep safe, and God bless Guam. Thank you so much.
So that was our first virtual meeting with the office of Senator Jim Moylan. Thankfully, Congressman Michael St. Nicholas joined the call as well. And I mean, no surprise, he is very concerned with the way that the administration is spending money. He is very concerned that the administration will not be reimbursed with federal funds for things like the hotel quarantine, where they are anticipating that FEMA will be reimbursing this funding. Later in our show later on today, when we talk more about that whole Tony Babauta having a presidential suite at Pacific Star Hotel, we're going to bring you more documents about what's going on with the funding behind this hotel quarantine and the contracts that have been executed between the government of Guam and these hotels. But Congressman Michael St. Nicholas also is concerned about this. Senator Jim Moylan's concerned about this. The congressman says, we need the Guam legislature, please legislature, conduct oversight hearings to find out what in the world the Leon Guerra administration is up to, and pass legislation that is required to get things done faster so that people can have money faster. He says you need to make it as a condition of maintaining your business license that every business has to report certain things so that people can get those unemployment checks, those weekly unemployment checks. As it stands, all we're hearing from the governor are empty promises on a timeline that keeps moving, and yet no money coming to the people of Guam. One correction that we have from the office of Senator Cerise Sirlahi, when we asked Senator Moylan whether he will consider voting to override Bill number 333, I think Senator Moylan may have been mixing up bills 333 and 336. 336 is a whole other bill that the governor vetoed regarding transfer authority. Senator Cerise Sirlahi will not be pursuing an override on Bill 336, but I think what's still on the table is an override of Bill number 333. So we'll try to get Senator Moylan on the record on that later on today. And until our show later today, I'm Troy Torres with Kandit News. On our producer's desk is... Adios.